Hey everybody, we're just about to get set up here as we're going to do a bit of a Dominion stream. This will be mostly a chat and strategy. DasTactics will be here with us, maybe Wagamama. We're going to do a Disciples game together this weekend. So so we'll get that started in just a moment. All right, guys, I just got through my fixing a few technical issues here, and I'm on the call with DasTactics, and he's about to do the intro for his video, his stream. Hello, everybody. Glad to be back.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing a bit of a masterclass. Sakwane is sort of like an incredibly good Dominion's 5 player, and so we're going to be playing just and there may be Wagamama may also join us, and possibly Wadestar as well. The 4 of us are on one team, and we're going to be playing a Disciples game against another 4 group, and Sakwane is our team captain. So Sakwane
That's a
is
very
the task.
that's a very generous introduction there.
Oh, seriously though, it's when I knew that it was you and Lucid were the 2 team captains, it was like, okay, cool. You just tell us what to do, we'll just do it.
Well, no, that's not the idea, I don't think. But yeah, actually, I don't know if. I mean, I certainly haven't announced it, and I haven't seen a message from Lucid. So this might actually be these live streams might be the first time people are hearing about this. So spoilers, yeah, we're gonna have a Disciples game this weekend. Will be, and pretty much everybody involved is either a streamer or a YouTuber in some fashion. I don't know exactly how everybody is going to, decide to record or stream the content, but you can expect, I'm sure, many different perspectives on this game. And we are, like DasTactics said, we're going to have 2 teams of 4. It's going to be a Mega Disciples game. And so Lucid is captaining one team, and I'm captaining another team. And I'd say, it'd be fair to say there's quite a mix of experience levels, right, on the teams. I guess Lucid and I are the most experienced players. But we've played, we played in the previous YouTubers game, and you've played for many years. So there's quite a variety of players here, so it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's like it should be interesting, because normally I guess with these games you do try to sort of have equal levels on the different, across a game, but in this case, we do have pretty wildly different skill levels, I think. So that should make for some interest as well. So anyway, look, I guess that what we should do is, if you wanted to sort of start to go through as you're going to actually be running the Pretender, did you want to start going through? Maybe I'll just sort of pop in with a few questions here and there. If anyone
Yeah.
does actually have any questions they want to sort of ask, then just leave them in the chat, and I'll try to sort of also sort of moderate those as they come through. So it's I mean my chat, not Sacramento's chat.
Well, yeah,
Sacramento's
actually,
also live.
yeah. So I'm live. I'm streaming this live on directly to my YouTube channel. So if the 3 people that are watching right now can feel free to ask questions. And if you're watching on Twitch on Das's stream, I'm not reading that chat right now, but actually maybe I can find a way to pop that somewhere. But I'm running out of screen real estate here. But I'm sure Das will forward those questions. We might be joined later by Waga, who has like thousands of viewers, so we might get flooded by questions then. So I guess let me just start. So this is a Disciples game, and for those of you who don't know, Disciples games are a little bit different. It's a mechanic in Dominions that allows you to have sort of a formal team. When you play a Disciples game, you have one nation that carries, that is the Pretender itself, and that nation. In this case, I'm using EA Tianqi. That's actually the nation we'll be using, but I just want to show you guys and click this. As you can see, if I go to create a Pretender for a Disciples game, I only have access to the top 2 rows of Pretenders that are normally available for that nation. Whereas, if I were to create a Disciple, and if I pick Tianqi again, just to be consistent, then you only really have access to the bottom 2 rows, the Rainbow Pretenders and the Expanders. Only the Scales and the Bless from the Pretender, from the nation that's carrying the Pretender, affect the entire team. So this allows for a lot of really creative strategies because you could have, if you are playing as one of the Disciple nations, you're going to inherit the Bless and the Scales from the other nation, but then you're free to also have some kind of special chassis that you're going to use as your Disciple. Do
they become more of a super combatant? Is that the idea, or do they have other
They can. Yeah, they can. So except the problem is you can't really pick the Titans, right? Which are the preferred super combatant chassis. But here, if I look at I went to Pretenders. See, like these are the Titans, which are usually the second row here, and they tend to make great super combatants. If I went to create a Disciple here with, again, I'm just picking this nation as an example. You see that we have the Rainbow chassis and we have basically the Expander chassis. So a few nations do have some sort of second row chassis here that could be super combatants. Honestly, though, these Expanders, like you can take an Earth Serpent. That you can never go wrong with an Earth Snake. So there are a lot of. I guess that's the main decision if you're a Disciple, is do I want to have an Expander type of chassis, which is kind of like a super combatant. The other thing is it's important to keep in mind what if you're going awake or dormant or imprisoned. So in a Disciples game, the Pretender still does the same choice, right? Awake and so forth. The Pretender, the Disciples chassis will come online in half the time of the Pretender. So if it's awake, it's awake. But if it's dormant, it'll come online at about 6 months. And if it's an imprisoned, it'll come online at about 18 months. So, if you're taking an Earth Snake, but we were going imprisoned, then it's only coming out on turn 18. That's less, it's less fun.
Yeah. And so for what we'd be doing, that would be just too long, wouldn't it, to be going for the 3 year sort of, the 1.5 year wait, essentially.
Although in our case, for our strategy that we've worked out, we are going awake, so you can fully take advantage of an awake Expander if you wanted to.
Yeah. Okay. Starting to get a few viewers coming in. So hi guys, I'm just seeing a few of the comments there. So if we what I might do is should we let's build your Pretender. I'm going to go back to my screen for for what I'm sort of streaming for my guys,
Sure.
just so that they can see what's going on a bit more clearly. So I'll do that. And
I guess actually, yeah, I'll actually start. Maybe I want to talk about the nations that people wanted to play, and then we'll build into the Pretender, I think, from there. Because, if you guys may or may not know, that's not what I meant. I meant to do tools. Dominions is vast. There are many different nations, many different styles, and especially in terms of blessed designs, and in Disciples games, the bless is going to apply to all the nations. So people can pick any nation they want, but it's hard to find a bless and a set of scales that are going to work well with 4 completely different nations. So, a classic thing that you might do is, okay, what if we went giants with like a regeneration blood bond type of bless? Well, that's great, but regeneration is really bad on like human sacreds who have 10 hit points, right? So, so some of our players, the first players on our team who volunteered, their preferences, wanted to play as Vanheim and as Helheim.
Yep. So that's now I forget which out of Wadestar and Wagamama are doing both of those. So I'm just opening up those screens now in the Pretender.
Yeah, me
view,
too.
Just
Yeah.
to sort of have a quick look at the factions. I think that Vanheim is going to be Wadestar, isn't it?
I forget which one is which. I actually think it might be Waga, but we'll see.
Oh, okay. Because I thought Waga wanted to play as with the Giants. Oh, hang on, no, neither of them have got Giants, have they?
Well, I hope they don't, because this is not a good build for Giants that we're doing.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so they're going to be sort of covered with what they're doing. So they're getting air gems and.
So what's important about for the purposes of a Disciples game, what I want to. The only thing I want to point out, I won't necessarily do a whole nation overview for these nations, but the sacreds that I'm looking at Vanheim now. Vanheim's sacreds are these Vanheir, which are human-sized troops, so size 2, but they are glamour, berserkers, and dual wielders.
Sorry, which troop was that we're looking at?
This is the Vanheir. This is the Vanheim's sacred. It is.
I've just opened that one up on the screen. Yep.
Yeah. So you can see it's a 15 hit point human-sized troop, stealthy and glamour, berserker 5, and dual wielder. So these guys are absolute murder machines. They are super, super killy because you're getting 2 attacks per unit, and you get 3 of these units per square, so that's 6 attacks per square. They have a high attack rating, which is going to get even higher once Berserker goes off. And each of their attacks already natively does a ton of damage, and it's going to do even more damage when Berserker goes off, because Berserker buffs strength as well.
Right, yeah.
So even without a bless, these are fantastic units.
So let's just step back one little bit. I guess from your perspective, with what you were trying to do with the setup, you're looking at each of the sacred units that we actually have to see what would be the best combination for our group, wouldn't it be? So you're looking to try to figure out a way to meld 4 different play styles and playing groups into one cohesive sort of faction, and I guess you're focusing on the sacreds.
Well, what I was trying to do is also influence the choice of nations so that their sacreds can benefit from the same kinds of blesses, right? So in Dominions, you have blesses that are good for making your units more killy. You have blesses that are good for making them more tanky and tough, and all sorts of other options, right? So one of the issues is, if we were at first thinking, people wanted, let's do like a cold theme, so let's have Niflheim in there. Niflheim is the big cold giant nation. But Niflheim's sacreds, which are these big size 6 giants with huge 2-handed axes, they're great units, don't get me wrong, but the kind of bless that would benefit a giant is not at all the same kind of bless that is going to benefit a dual wielder size 2 unit.
That's what you were saying before, that regeneration would be
exactly. right? Like typically, if you want to do like a meme giant bless, you might go like regen and whatever stuff like that. But that's just not going to benefit this player as much. So either the whole team goes giants, or maybe the whole team goes killy units, or something like that, right? I was trying to find, what could I find that would, first of all, that would be effective, right? Because we have to come up with something that's going to be somewhat useful, and then also that synergizes well with itself. So yeah, and so looking at the sacred is the most important thing, because that's going to carry the bless. We could have gone. It could have also been just that we pick 4 nations and just go scales, like nations that have bad sacreds, and you just go massive scales and economy. That could have been a thing too, right? But these guys said this one player wanted to play Vanheim, so that's what we have. And I should also point out that Vanheim, as well as Helheim, they have these glamour sacred cavalry. So these are elves, and that means they have very high defense and glamour, which synergizes together very well. It means they're very, very hard to hit. And so
Helheim's got two. They've got two sacreds, haven't they?
Let's take a look. I'm going to bring up Helheim here. No, they only have. Oh yes, they have the
Hell Herding as well.
They have the Valkyrie, but that's not. Yeah, what people mostly use is the cavalry, but you could use the Valkyrie as well. Yeah. The Hell Herding is I think a superior unit. But let's take a look at these sacreds here from Helheim. They also have glamour cavalry. Now these units they're less killy. These are more your prototypical elves. And when I say prototypical elves and dominions, that means you have glamour and you have very high defense. And glamour, the way glamour works is it's mistform basically, so it negates attacks against you unless you have magic weapons. But we won't get into all the specific mechanics. But it negates attacks, and defense also negates attacks. And so having high defense and glamour synergizes very well. This makes, in particular, their commanders, and this is true for both Helheim and Vanheim, all of these sacred, these Van Jarls and whatnot, are great, very light thug raiders, because PD just can't hit 22 defense glamour. PD just can't touch that. So
you got the 22 defense glamour. It's got 19 defense skill.
I said 22. So you just have to excuse me. Just pick. There are many different units. Some have different. Like for example, in Helheim, the Dis has 22 defense, but if you picked and the Van Jarl also has 22 defense. Okay, but if we look at the Van Hers has 20 defense. Right, the Hell Herding, which is the unit, the sacred unit, it has 19 defense. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So if we have, hang on, no defense skill. Sorry, I'm looking at the glamour. I'm looking back to the Van here. No, that's okay. I'll just go with whatever you just said.
Well, yeah. Okay. So I was looking at Helheim and the Hell Herdings, which are their sacred cavalry. So it has 19 defensive skill. The thing that's a little weird about Vanheim is that although they are elves and they have glamour, their sacred unit is actually an offensive based, right? It's a dual wielding berserker. So if you were just doing typical elves like Tir na Nog or Helheim or whatever, then you are really tempted to take a bless that maybe boosts your defense even more. You could do like a rainbow bless where you get some water and some air in there, and you can take him imprisoned, and you get some defense from the water, air. You can get another defense now plus swiftness, and then you could get like some blood surge and blood, and then maybe some attack, some strength, whatever. Like a rainbow bless, can work very well on these kind of glamour units.
But because there's 4 of us. Then I guess that's the faction that I have to then play has to then be added into it as well, doesn't it? So
sure. We could decide, we'll just do something that's good for 2 of the nations and screw the other 2 guys, right? You could do that. Rainbow Bless is a possibility. one of the issues when you're thinking about this, though, is like, can you kill an earth snake? Can you kill meme giants? Right? So you always have to imagine what's the worst that they can throw at us, and are we even gonna have a chance against it? So if Team Lucid goes like Ashdod and Femoria, and they have like regen, blood bond, fortitude giants, can we even kill those? And the answer is, if you've got Rainbow Cavalry, it's really, really hard. Because if we look at, for example, Helheim's Hellherdings here, yeah, they have 19 defense. Let's say we took a Rainbow Bless, they're like 23 defense. So like, haha, nothing can kill me. But offensively, they've got like a light lance and a hoof, which have like 13 attack. Maybe you had 15 attack, I don't know. And you're doing what, like 13 bludgeoning damage? Like the giants have 15 protection. Like Ashdod giants have like 15 protection, 15 defense easily, right? And then they're going to have regen, blood bond, and maybe fortitude. They're going to take literally 0 damage each time you hit them. And you have to be doing, even if you did 10 damage to them each time you hit them, that's not enough because they're regen, blood bond, right? They'll just sit there, and once in a while they'll get a shot off on your 22 defense. And because they do like 30 damage per hit, they just one-shot you and you die. So for that reason, that's not an excellent choice. Now, that being said, that's maybe a problem for Helheim. To be honest, I'm going back to Vanheim now. The Vanheers are just unbelievably good at killing giants. Dual wielders are excellent giant killers.
Right, yep, with the ambidextrous.
Because you're only going to have 1 giant per square, and you're going to have 6... you're going to have 3 Vanheers per square, doing 2 attacks each, so 6 attacks per square. So that's going to harass down the defense of the giants a lot. So almost all of these attacks are going to hit. And it so happens that he's dual wielding an axe and a broadsword, which are some of the highest damage weapons. Plus, just natively, without a bless, this thing would do well against giants.
Yeah, so I'm just opening up now the size screen just so people can sort of see the difference there with the size 2, with the human size coming back in, and each square in the combat has enough space for 6 size points.
Exactly.
For humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and really, there's some giants that have only got size 3 where they can get 2 per square, but then most giants are 4 and above, aren't they?
Yeah, I guess 3. I guess I don't really consider giants. 3 would be more like just a very large fellow, I guess. Or half giants, right? There's some nations like Ur and Uruk have a lot of size 3 units. Which actually is actually a great form factor. It can often be pretty good because they tend to have hit points in the 20s, which is usually enough to survive 1 hit. The issue with humans, of course, is that, especially if you're fighting giants, but just in general, they just tend to die in 1 hit to a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Nephil giants is that's size 5, but some of the pretenders are size 6, aren't they?
Yes, they might be size 5, the giants, which is unfortunate, right? Because you're kind of wasting. There's very few things that are size 1, so but they're super combatants. Yeah, their Jarls are size size 6. So, but anyways, those are only 2 of the nations, and then we were thinking, what other nations could we add to this mix? And already, since these are 2 cold elf nations, we're thinking, well, let's be thematic. What other cold nations can we do? We've talked about Niflheim a little bit and how I didn't think it was a great fit because it's hard to find a bless that works for both the giants and these elves. So there are a couple.
That was interesting to me because I wasn't aware of your thought process because I was thinking, I'll just go Niflheim. That way we'll just all we'll all just be cold.
Be all cold, yeah.
But I hadn't really thought through the bless strategy that you so that's that next level that you go to.
Exactly. So you gotta think about those things. So there are a few other options. There's Ulm and there's Rus. Now I'm going to open up Ulm here just to show people.
Yep.
So Ulm is a human nation, not elves. They also prefer cold scale +1. And again, I'm completely skipping the rest of the nation. Although Ulm is actually for a human nation, it's pretty strong, similar to its MA and LA counterpart. Its recruitable humans are much better than average, I would say. You know, in early age, humans tend to be like, you know, leather, shield, you know, spear. They're pretty quite average. Here we actually have a ton of dual wielders, just normal regular units. You have the steel maidens and their bows. Anyway, so Ulm is actually very good at killing giants, incidentally. They might not throw giants at us. But anyways, what I want to show is their sacreds, which are the steel warriors. So here you have a different kind of human sacred. The thing that's relevant here is just that they have a big two-handed weapon.
Yep, the great sword.
The great sword. So this means that you'll only have 3 attacks per square, but at 25 slashing damage, is going to be enough to go through high protection. And they also have high attack. Now this is base. It depends, of course, how you bless it. But this is also a fairly killy sacred unit. It's got the main disadvantage that it's human and doesn't have great defense. I mean, it has okay protection and defense. If you're fighting giants, it'll die in 1 turn anyways. But with its very powerful sword, it is quite killy. This kind of weapon is able to take on earth snakes, for example. And would do not terribly against giants, just because you need that raw DPS, right? And if your giants have, like, depends on the giant, but if it's anywhere from 10 to 15 protection, they might have fortitude that would reduce the damage taken by half, but often people take in Earth they usually take fire and shock resistance. So even with regen blood bond, you're actually going to be doing 10 plus damage per hit on these guys. And again, this is without any special bless. And that is starting to bring you in the territory where you can maybe actually kill a main blessed giant.
Right. Yeah.
But the flavor of this sacred is killiness, right? As similar to the Vanheim sacreds, not quite like the Elven cavalry, where you kind of want to double down on their defense.
Yeah.
This unit is, I mean, obviously nobody will complain about defense, but it's not gonna like, it's not like a great synergy with this unit, right?
Yeah.
So that's Ulm. A very, very quick look at Ulm's sacreds. The other nation that we were looking at is Rus. Which I'm going to open up right now. Rus is another cold human nation. Interestingly, so this is a human nation. Some of their humans are these chuds, or I guess, I'll call them chud or chud. I don't know.
Skin shifters.
I'm not even looking at the sacreds yet, but just they're recruitable humans. They have these chuds which have a ton of hit points. Like this chud berserker has 17 hit points. And that is a very high amount of hit points, very unusually high amount of hit points for a human troop.
Yeah, isn't it?
So I just wanted to point that out, which is a good recruitable troop. Their sacreds, and in fact, they're good troops that often you might, if you're playing this as a standalone nation, you might expand with that and not their sacreds. Let's look at their sacreds, though, which are the skin shifters. Again, size 2 with 19 hit points is quite special. These they have almost no protection, and they don't have a hat, which is quite unfortunate. However, they are berserkers, and they also have this big two-handed weapon, which does 26 slashing damage. So once again, this flavor of sacred is killy. Now, you might say, why am I paying 65 gold and 33 recruitment points for a human with a big axe, who, yes, maybe is sacred and maybe is berserker? That's because when this fellow dies, he becomes a werebear, who has like 45 hit points, is also sacred, and has 2 attacks, like a bite and a claw. So this guy lives twice.
Is that per battle, or is that actually? I've forgotten now. So I did play this when it first came out, but
That is a good question. We'll have to test. I forget, so I don't want to say right now. Like when he dies and becomes a bear, what happens after the battle? Does he become a dude again, or does he stay a bear? It's actually been a while, so we'd have to test it right now.
I can't remember actually.
Yeah.
So we've got a fair few people in the chat. Someone in the chat may be able to.
Yeah, they might know. We could test it very quickly, though. We'll find out. So, now, if you were just playing Roos alone, I think it's not optimal, but you might be tempted to take a regeneration bless, because if you maybe do regen and a bit more HP with blood, you can get to like a 3 hit point tick on the regen, because he's got a base HP of 19. And then the bear form really even takes the regen even more, because it's got even more hit points. So, it's not impossible. Okay, somebody in my chat is saying they become human again, which is what I'm leaning towards, but we can confirm that later.
Okay.
Anyways, so these are also kind of killy units. So those are the 4 cold human-y nations. Now, there's a trick, though, which is that the nation that is taking the pretender... Let me show you as an example. Suppose I was going to play as Ulm, and I was going to be the pretender for this team. So I'm going ahead here, and I'm creating a pretender for Ulm.
Just step me through what you're doing, and I'll just do it on my screen as well.
Okay, so I've gone into Tools, create a pretender for a Disciple game.
Hang on, I better just go back again. Okay, early ages, Ulm. Okay, and then we just select the physical form.
Right. So, what I wanted to point out, let's pick. Well, let me show you. So, let's click on the Father of Winters. Or, actually, no. Let's change that. Let's pick the Oracle. Okay.
So the difference there being that you've got it's easier to pick up new paths. Plus, you've got water and astral.
So we are. This is actually the pretender that we'll be using. I should say major spoilers here. If you don't tell this to the other team guys, they don't know yet what we're doing.
Probably should have said that right from the start.
Well, I mean, look, it's only 4 people. I think we know them and they're good. If one of you 4 that we're playing against is listening right now, then shame on you.
Yeah. Yes. It's a reflection on your character if you're watching.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm actually gonna I'm gonna spoil the conclusion a little bit, but this is the bless that we've gone is quickness, twist, fate, and I'll explain a little bit more why we're doing like the specific advantages and disadvantages of this build. But you'll want to go ahead and put 10 points in water and 6 points in astral. And this is going to be awake, and we'll talk about the actual bless itself in a moment, but I wanted to touch on something which has to do with the scales and the cold scales in particular. So if you have quickness and twist fate, awake. Now we need to take 1 in magic for quickness, so we'll go ahead and do that. And now we need to pay for this bless somehow, and we need to have some dominion score. So we're bringing up Dominion to 8. We can afford to sacrifice a bit of misfortune, so we're going to give us 2 misfortune. And now we're going to need some more points still, so we'll drop cold down to cold 3. And we still need to kill 3 scales. And since all of these nations, their sacreds take very few resources compared to the recruitment costs and the gold costs, we're going to drop productivity down to sloth 3. Growth is an excellent econ scale. It really kills me that we can't take growth, but, we're taking away quickness bless, so
is it not worth taking a dormant so that at least the other guys get the theirs out at 6 months? Does that give us any sort of benefit?
That could be... let's talk about that for sure. Like that, the advantage and disadvantage of taking dormant. But I want to just wrap up one little point here. So if I took this bless on Ulm, this is not a terrible build, right? We get our wake, incarnate, bless, and all of that. The problem is that Ulm starts with cold 1. So I can drop to cold 3, but that only gives me 80 design points. Instead, if I took a nation that had neutral heat scales, or even heat 1, then I could drop 3 temperature scales, go to cold 3 or cold 2, and I would get an extra 40, I get an extra scale for free. I get an extra 40 design points. For the other nations on my team, in other words, let's say I take a neutral heat scale nation, like I'm going to pick Tianqi, so we'll show that nation in a moment. But suppose, Das, you were playing Rus and they were playing Vanheim and Helheim. Those are cold nations. So if we're going cold 3 anyways, those nations don't suffer. Only I suffer a little bit. In other words, if I was Ulm versus me being Tianqi, Ulm has a cold 1 preference. So I would take a slight hit to my econ by going to Tianqi instead of being Ulm. But it won't affect your econ takes a hit, but whether I play Tianqi or Ulm doesn't affect how much penalty you take from the cold scale. But it gives us another 40 design points, which we could use to pick up another scale somewhere. In fact,
I've switched across to Tianqi now. So
let me catch up to you. So if I go early ages, if you recreate that build now in Tianqi, which can also take the Oracle, as we furiously click here.
Okay, just got a couple of questions. So, hi guys. I won't go through everybody that said hello, but Doomsday saying, I'm hearing Dominions talk. It's all going. Okay, well, if you've got specific, if there's specific things that we're doing that you wanted to, actually, what I'll do is I'll do a quick summary of what we're doing because there's a lot of new people that have now come back in. So Sakwane is the team leader of a group. We're going to be playing a Disciples game next Saturday for the rest of the world and Sunday for me. So for Australia, it's so I don't think I've got anyone else in my time zone. Just looking at the little maps that sort of show up. So in this sense, we're going. So it's a Disciples game. Sakwane is a team leader. Sakwane is a very, very good player. So he's just going through his thought process, which is really interesting for me because I wasn't really thinking to the same degree or same level that Sakwane does about how to go about doing this. So it's been sort of interesting to sort of step back. I would have assumed, to be honest, that you would have started with your pretender and then we just had to sort of slot back in. But you've gone the opposite way. You've actually looked at the best mix for at least 3 out of the 4 of us.
Yeah, in Disciples you can't do it top down. Yeah, well, also because we're playing 4-player teams, which is really big. If you're playing like a 2-team Disciples, then you can think of something in the middle. But yeah, you have to think holistically, for sure.
Yeah, actually, Lord Sloth in my chat has also just sort of said, you can get some of those points from a heat scale. So you could go the opposite way, but then we'd need to change all 3 other factions, but they need to readapt, wouldn't they?
Oh, well, correct. So the reason we're going cold is because, so if I'm playing as Tianqi and I'm carrying the Bless, then it doesn't matter to me if I go heat or cold in terms of the economic cost. However,
because you're neutral.
Yeah, because I'm neutral. However, the other 3 nations are all cold. They all prefer cold too. So that's why we're going cold, because they will suffer less economically. If the other nations had all been heat nations and we wanted to go heat scales, that's fine. But in this case, it would be ridiculous to go heat scales on the Blessed because it'll just penalize them economically. All other things being equal, having cold scales makes logistics a bit easier because rivers get frozen over. But it does make humans more vulnerable to things like murdering winter. But this is going to be very quick. I think this is going to be a quick, bloody game. I don't think we're going to get to like Evocation 9 stuff. And actually, most of you guys have like frost resistance built into your guys anyways, so it's a bit less of an issue too. We're just gonna have to live with that. I've got a couple questions here. So somebody earlier had asked, what can you do to fight an elf when they have storm and mist on? I find elves are harder to deal than with giants. Yeah, elves. Killing elves, you need magic weapons of some kind because that pops the glamour right off. And then you just need enough attack density to harass down their defense. So that is the short answer. If you didn't take magic weapons on your bless, and if your nation doesn't have any units with built-in magic weapons, you'll need some other source. That could be magic from your mages. Archery is also an excellent way to deal with glamour, because that stuff only applies to the melee weapons, so you can just pop glamour with bows. So those are two. Now the thing is,
much luck doing that, to be honest, with the archery.
Well, you got to pin them down too, because if you have glamour cavalry sprinting across the field, then arrows are never going to catch them. So you need to have like some chaff, but it could be javelins. It could just be archers in the back.
Geez, I wish I had known that with all the games I've been playing against Wadestar over the last year or two.
Yeah, playing.
He's sort of been my arch enemy.
Oh, I see. Well, now fortunately you're on the same team.
We're on the same team.
But yeah, well, you got to be careful because first of all, people with Glamour Cav, they're going to do hold and attack rear, right? So you got to script carefully to protect your commanders in the back. But yeah, you got to put. The thing is, Glamour Cavalry is hard to kill, but they're not super killy. So it's not too hard to tank them. You just need to have, and they're expensive, right? They're like 60 gold a unit. So you can have a lot more cheaper dudes. You just got to find the right combination. It's not a given, but it's definitely, they also have advantages on the sort of strategic layer where they can be very stealthy and they could do a lot of raiding. So yeah, it is a pain to play against in many respects. And then somebody else asked, will you play with the AI no buff mod on? Yes, I believe we will. So this is Zayugo who's also asking that. This is a mod that Lucid has made. In one of the more recent patches, Illwinter has introduced a few modding commands that allow us to set the priority, like a weight factor that affects the preference for mages to cast certain spells when they go off script. And there's a big problem in Dominions, especially with regard to assassinations, where mages just do like the dumbest. I'll keep my language extra clean because I don't know what everybody else's streaming policies are, but they just do like the dumbest stuff you could possibly imagine. And
so has Lucid written a mod? Has he? I wasn't.
Well, yeah. So we actually will play with. So he has a couple of mods, but they're not big mods. One of the mods he has is his gem generating items, or temporary gem gens, which we always play with. He's just added a handful of items to the game, which are there are a few items already in the base game which give you a temporary gem. For example, there's like a fire one. It gives you one temporary fire gem. And what he's done is he's created a handful of more of these sorts of items so that each type of item has two different... each path of magic has two different items that provide temporary gem gens. Usually there's a cheap one that provides one or two, and a more expensive one that might provide 3 or 4.
So sorry, just to get my head around this. So we're talking about this would buff the independence. Is that correct?
No, it has nothing to do with the independence. This is an item that you would forge to put on your mages. And for example, there is already an item in the game. I forget. It's like a jar of fire or something like that.
Yeah.
It costs 5 fire gems to forge. And what it does is every battle, the commander who has it has access to 1 free fire gem.
Right.
So that means that you can, for example, let's say you wanted to buff flaming arrows each fight. And you have like a flame spirit, which is a base fire 3. So he would do Phoenix Fire first turn to get to fire 4, and then flaming arrows. But that spell costs 1 fire gem to do.
Yep.
So you need to give him fire gems. But then what if he goes on a campaign for like 10 turns? And, you didn't give him 15 fire gems when you set out the first time, because that's ridiculous, right? You need your gems for other things, or what if he dies? So you give him a few gems, but then he runs out. And so there's all this logistics in Dominions 5 around supplying gems to your army. You have scouts carrying your gems for you. It's a bit of a headache. So part of the reason for that was to reduce this micromanagement. But another reason for it is because there's a tactic which is called gem baiting, which can be used to trigger a fight in the magic phase with a sufficiently strong army, or usually it's a commander with some gear. And that will scare your army so much that it will decide to use its gems. There's like a built-in algorithm where an army decides, is this like such an insignificant force that I don't even need to bother spending gems? Or do I need to spend the gems? And so, but that threshold is hard-coded, and we all know what it is. So it's very cheap to just send a commander in with enough magic paths and a few gems, and then that automatically triggers gem usage. But if I've got like my big army, which is ready to cast all these support spells, I might be spending 10, 15 gems in support spells per fight. And it's a real pain if you can just teleport in a commander who's just going to sit there and then retreat, right? They're going to do nothing. All they do is they burn my gems. And then in that same turn, we have the real fight later. But during that fight, I don't have any gems anymore, right? So you always, in Dominions, you always have to put at least 2 fights worth of gems on your commanders to fight against that, which is sometimes annoying, sometimes not possible. And so
I don't think in terms of that sort of level of micromanagement.
Yeah, but it's necessary, right? Because what if you think, I'm going to do mass protection, fog warriors, with all these buffs, my army's going to be great, unkillable. You prepare to siege you're going to storm the other person's castle. They're in the castle. They send one dude out to break siege. He baits all your gems. Then you have the real fight. Your army has no buffs for the key battle, right? And you lose the fight almost right up, right? So the temporary gems are a way to kind of address that balance shortcoming of the game. So that's one of the mods.
That's a mod that we're going to be playing with, is it?
Yeah, we in Lucid's games we always play with the mod. Yeah. In all his games in his community, there are just a handful of mods that we always use. That's one of them. And these are very minor. Like it adds a handful of items, so it's not it's by no means an overhaul. It's a tiny little mod. Another mod, incidentally, that we always play with is Worthy Heroes.
I was wondering about that one because that's probably the most common multiplayer mod, isn't it?
Yeah, and what that one does is every nation in the game has a few sort of heroes that might appear, it's based on your luck scales, during the course of the game. And some nations have really cool heroes, and some nations just don't. Some nations just have very ordinary, or they don't even have heroes, or they have heroes, but they're just really not interesting, and they don't contribute much.
But with this game, this one's being set up by Wadestar, isn't it? Because Wadestar's been setting up all the others. And so I know that Wadestar has a preference for no mods.
Then that could be the case. Honestly, that's a good point that you mentioned, and I don't know if we have what we've agreed on the mods. I guess I'm presenting the mods.
I'm presenting. If Wadestar's involved, it'll be no mods.
It could be no mods.
And I think that the reason he does that is because, like when we first started doing the first of the series, the thought process was: do we start to use these mods that like the higher level players tend to sort of use, or do we just go with vanilla game so that when we're doing the recordings, at least it's something that anybody could pick up and play? So that's something.
Sure.
that was a consideration. I don't know if I haven't seen any. I haven't read all of the notes about this game.
Yeah, I don't know that that's been decided, and that's a good point. I would say that, to be honest, these mods and also the AI casting mod, they actually kind of protect newer players more, because so for example, what I just described in terms of the gem baiting, like if you're a newer player, it wouldn't occur to you to do that. So that's something that I, as an experienced player, would take advantage of a newbie by gem baiting all his stuff, and then
Yep.
right, like so. So if you don't have a way to deal, like this, just gives a way to deal with that. Where the heroes is, perhaps in the other direction, but it's also a very minor mod, to be honest. It a few nations that got like underserved in the heroes department get a few nicer heroes. The AI scripting mod that one's more complicated, and we've only played a couple of games with it, so we're still kind of seeing how it's going to work out.
Okay. Yeah.
But it addresses.
I don't personally don't mind either way. Actually, it's I used to play with Worthy.
Yeah, I don't think it'll matter much for this game. The reason that the AI scripting mod is important is because we've discovered, as we're playing, even though some players in the community have a lot of experience, Dominions is still very much unexplored, right? As a game, there's so much, like the meta is so young, right? And in its infancy, we're realizing, as we play these high-level games, we realize, oh, this is a thing that we didn't really realize you could do. And then, oh, but this counters that. And we're starting to discover, like, what's the real, like, cancer in this game, right? Like, what are the things that are just really bad? And what are because it's a very asymmetrical game, right? Dominions 5 is not a balanced game. Nobody pretends it is.
Which I like.
Yes, you have to accept that going into the game. If you're thinking, oh, well, it's not fair, Nazca is overpowered. Yes, it's overpowered. Yes, we all know, we all agree. If you like,
but when Lucid joined our last game, it was basically okay. Well, we'll have to gang up on him because he's gonna smash us.
What nation was he playing?
What was it? The Aztec one. What's that?
Miquelin. Miquelin.
Yeah, Miquelin. Yeah.
Well, okay, so Miquelin. Yeah, Miquelin has access to, but Miquelin is. Miquelin isn't over. The whole nation isn't necessarily as overpowered, but like Ocelots are perhaps the single strongest unit in the game, right? And
he was using very effective bless, and the rest of us being
absolutely
sort of like noobs, we didn't know.
Yeah.
Like we were watching what his bless was and thinking,
it's like quick. It's a murder bless complete, but
Yeah.
So that's a good example of like, yes, that unit is ridiculous, but it's a blood summon, so you don't start with it. You need to. He also has like his own sacreds. They die, then they become jaguars with 3 attacks. Like it's a nation that is designed to have garbage scales that all go into a crazy bless.
Yeah.
So
actually, I've just got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just bounce in. A couple actually, but Ban Jones is saying, who is speaking, and can we get a link to his Twitch? This is Sakwine, and Sakwine is on YouTube. He's streaming on YouTube at the moment.
Yeah, I do have a Twitch, but right now I'm just streaming it to YouTube because I am way too lazy. Like, DasTactics is a real content creator. I just sometimes record things and then never edit anything and just put it right to YouTube. So I'm just streaming this right to my YouTube channel, which
I
is
hate editing actually.
yeah. Well, yeah. So it's a YouTube/Sakwine.
Yeah. Actually, was a bit earlier up there. Are the pretenders you're choosing the best in the game or the best for your chosen faction, and are the rest just fluff in the game? That was from Tony First Gen.
So it's. I think he means for the Disciples game, right?
Yes. Yeah. So So you're talking about the Disciples and the pretenders. Just a really quick, like 1 minute recap on what we're doing. What Sakwine has done was he asked us our preference initially because he's our team captain. He's the better player out of the 4 of us on our team, and so he actually asked our preference for what we wanted to play. We had 2 wanted to go cold nations, so Helheim and Vanheim. And so, and I was happy to play any of the other cold nations. I've played Rust before. I enjoyed it. Ulm is easy to play, so I was happy to play either one of those 2. And so Sakwine then sort of has now tried to figure out where his pretender can make the best use out of those other cold nations. And so that's where we're up to right now. And so actually, Ban Jones is saying, well, a link to his YouTube. If you do a search for SAQUENAY in YouTube, you'll find.
Yeah, it should be YouTube / whatever the short URL is for.
Yep, youtube.com/Thaquenay. So it's SAQUENAY. If you have a look at the description that I've got in Twitch, you'll see his name in the description for the actual stream itself. And so it's just youtube.com/ and then that name. Hope that helps.
Yeah.
Okay, so and Thaquenay is like there's a few players on YouTube that are like that are a level above most of the rest of us, and Thaquenay is one of those. He's in that category.
Yeah.
So,
very generous. Very
generous. It's not generous at all. It's like just the stuff that you and Lucid and a few of the others get up to is just like, oh wow, okay, that's a bit more mind-boggling than what I'm used to.
Well, that's true. We do get into some pretty high-level stuff.
Tony Firstgen was just affirming that yes, it was how the combination of things are sort of going, because we haven't actually spoken yet about the we're setting up your pretender now to get the best.
Yeah. So actually, we should get back to that, because I said I would get to that like half an hour ago. Oop.
Yeah.
I got a new subscriber. I don't know if that was you.
I've got it almost set up now where I've got the we've got that extra, because you went TNG with the Oracle. We've got that extra 40 points.
Yeah.
That's what we got up to.
So let's head back to that. So I'm back on that screen exactly. Let's
do a complete recap of this one. I'm just going to go cancel out, build it. I'll talk it through from my side if that's okay.
Go for it.
You just pipe in if there's something that I'm getting wrong. That way I'll learn as well. So I create a Pretender God from a Disciple game. Go to early access. I go to TNG. I then go and select for the physical form the Oracle. We want to go and make sure that with our bless effects we need to go to 10 water, and we need to go to 6 of the astral and 1 magic drain, which then gives us quickness and twist fate. That then gives us a negative 205 design points. We also need to get our Dominion up so that we can actually recruit the sacreds that we spoke about at the start of the stream. And so you've already worked out that 8 is the optimum. That gives us negative 275. To try to make this get back down to 0 with an awake Pretender, we then go to, we take a big hit on the productivity because we don't need the resources. So the resources go to negative 45%. We've now got a negative 155 design points. Because of the heat, this is the easy one. Because everyone else is playing cold and you're neutral, it starts off with heat, cold, 0. We're just going to send that one down to heat. That's a cold 3. It impacts you the worst, but it impacts the rest of us, the disciples, the least. So with that one, we get down to negative 35, which means we're getting pretty close. We go to misfortune 2. We don't want to go to misfortune 3 because it brings such bad events. And that then leaves us with 45, which means we've got one more that we can either put into growth or into order. And so I guess that's sort of like a real quick summary as to where what you'd done had sort of then, that catches us up to, I guess, where we were up to before we start talking about the mods, etc.
Yeah. And so I should also add that, so one of the reasons for picking the Oracle, although the Oracle does allow better multiple path access, we're actually not taking advantage of that. It does give us cheaper candles, right? The Dominion strength, so that does help.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Because it starts at 4, right? The Titans start at 3.
Yeah, okay. So it doesn't actually doesn't cost less to get them. We just have that little bit of a bonus to get there.
Well, I mean, each one you click costs more and more. So if you start at 4, to get to 8, it costs fewer points if you...
you know, 3.
Yeah, exactly.
If people aren't aware of what's going on with that, there's 4 tiers of pretenders you can pick, and the top tier, and each of them starts with a candle number. And so the top tier, which is where we chose this one from, is starts at tier 4. So if I scroll that one back, I'm just right clicking on it. I can't go lower than 4 because that top tier run starts at 4. So getting that to 8 just does cost less than if we started at 3.
Yeah. The statues are also cheaper. They cost far fewer points. And And also importantly, like, so I've decided to go with the quickness twist fate, and we should talk about that and how that's going to impact our sacreds. But since we are going for this awake incarnate bless, it's less interesting for me to put this on a Titan, on a super combatant, because I'm a lot more reticent to venture forth with my super combatant, because if he dies, we lose the bless, right? Until we can get him back. So
right, that's a good idea.
I'll just have a statue in my capital researching the whole game, like that's safer and we can get more scales. So that's part of the why we're going with that. Now, I didn't have in terms of the Titan chassis, there are some excellent ones that TNG has access to. But for example, you see here there's a Celestial Carp. And if we try to remake this Bless on this chassis, let me just see here. So if I kept the scales the same and I just did this on the Carp, we would have the maximum we could do is Dominion Strength 6.
Right.
And that's because the Carp, even though I have a national discount to it, still costs 210 points, whereas the Oracle is only 150.
Actually, you could go to 7 if you didn't use that other 40.
Sure, yeah. But I just wanted the comparison to be very easy to see, so I only changed one thing. And so then the question becomes, is it worth it to have a mobile potential? I mean, the Carp is not an amazing super combatant, but it has some advantages. It can take people underwater, and it's mobile. You can go claim thrones with it, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But
actually, sorry, just got a question here. Dusty Monk saying, don't all the immobile start with high dominion? The way it sort of works, I'm just going to go back out quickly, just go to just any old pretender guide, just so you can sort of see the difference. And if just to cover this aspect, there's 4 levels with normal dominion. So you've got the dominions 4, 3, 2, and 1. So just as a real quick sort of summary, your top tier are your immobile type pretenders, which is what we've just been talking about with the oracles and the statues, etc. The next one down are your titans, which are sort of like your big super combatants, starting with dominions 3. The next one are your sort of like your animals or your beasts, which allow you to sort of they're not as strong as a tier above, but they certainly can.
Typically, they're your awake expanders. Typically.
Yep. So these would be good choices. The Dominions 2 range would be very good against, for example, if you're just playing against the AI, I guess would be but not against humans. Would that be correct, or are they a viable pretender?
I think awake expanders have fallen out of fashion. I think lately, as people have figured out ways to expand with even the worst nations. It used to be more common that people really weren't sure how they were going to expand, and so they just they would take an awake expander. Now, in some cases, especially in multiplayer settings, it might be strategically totally legit or worth it to take an awake expander still, but that definitely has fallen out of fashion.
Yeah. Yep. And so you call these expanders, don't you? That Dominions 2 range.
Yeah, most of them, like, they tend to be monsters. Like, the most common, a lot of these are never used, but the most common would be, like, for example, the Earth Snake. The Earth Serpent is a classic one. Also the bulls, the white bulls, the Nature Earth ones. There's a blood one. Those tend to be the more common chassis that people use for early expansion.
Actually, I've just got another comment in here. So Neonavec is saying, I didn't know the Demi-Lick was in there's some oddball exceptions like the Demi-Lick.
The Demi-Lich is interesting because it's actually in a Disciples game. It's one of the only ways that you can kind of do a Rainbow Bless, because in a Disciples game, the Pretender has to be from the top 2 tiers. And the only one that has a low new magic paths cost is this Demi-Lich, which has 20, which is more than a rainbow. Rainbow's usually 10.
Actually, let's just quickly go back to the rainbows. So I'll just go back and show that as well. But just so we the basics. If we go back across to the physical form, so the minions does tend to be your rainbow mages, which are just humans. They've got sort of like low hit points themselves. but they do actually have very, very cheap costs for getting multiple levels of magic.
Yeah, so that's why they're called rainbow, because typically what you'll do is you'll get... In a regular game, you would use this to take some kind of rainbow bless, so a number of bless attributes that are not incarnate, and then you can take them imprisoned, which gives you a ton of design points. In some cases, that mage might be designed to give you some magic diversity, which you don't have. For forging some items or for summoning creatures that will then fix your magical diversity holes.
This takes us sort of almost full circle because
yeah,
bless effects open up with a... I've done a really basic, without even thinking about it, just a bit of a rainbow mage. But then we're looking at the... I guess one of the big considerations you had to make was if we go with something like the quickness and the twist fate, we are looking at incarnate only blesses, and this is actually a major consideration.
Absolutely.
Because you could have gone rainbow mage, and then we could have gone with like defense skill and those sorts of things which aren't incarnate, which means that you can take them imprisoned, which means that, or like sleeping. And so that way we can make use of them right from the very start of the game. But going incarnate only, the only way we get access to those is if your pretender is still alive. So playing the Disciples game, the life of your pretender is super, super important because while that's on the map, we then get access to this bless. But as soon as that your pretender is no longer there or asleep or whatever, we don't get access to it. I hope that makes sense to the people that are watching in, but that's actually, we're sort of going back to the very, very start of what we did at the start of this session.
And where, you had asked, you had asked, like, why not take this pretender dormant, right? So if I just recreate my, I'm going to go back here and recreate this pretender. So we had 8, 1, -3, -3, -2, and 1. This is actually a great design because we end up with only 5 extra design points. I love it when we can get really close to 0.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying. But so suppose we did go dormant. So that brings up, there are 2 issues here. One issue is that, our bless is, and we still have managed to not talk about how this bless is going to impact our sacreds, but I promise we'll get there. But we're not going to have that active for the first year. So that means we have to be able to expand with like non-blessed sacreds or other units, expand in some way where we can't take advantage of our bless. And
that's right, because even though...
Because it wouldn't be online until year 1.
Yeah,
right.
I didn't think of that.
And
because
so
of the incarnate only.
Yeah, it's incarnate only, and so that's kind of. I mean, it's possible. Honestly, all those nations that we're looking at, Rus, like the Elf nations, they can totally expand without sacreds. The problem is we paid a lot. Like normally, if you were not doing an awake bless, an incarnate bless, you would have better scales, which you would be using to recruit more stuff to make your expansion better, right? Like if you go with no bless or a scales build, then of course you're not relying on an incarnate bless to expand. You're relying on like order 3, productivity 2 or whatever to recruit like a bajillion Chud Berserkers in your case as Rus, right? And then expansion is a breeze, no problem. But it's really hard to expand without incarnate sacreds, but also without the scales that you use to pay for it, right? So now you have to use crappier troops, and you can't get a lot of them because you're paying for the bless that you're going to have in the future. So it's not impossible. It's possible. One of the things that we could have done is grab a little bit, consider the following. Like, if you follow along with me, take our pretender who was awake, now make him dormant. And then that gives us 155 points, right?
Actually, where did you put that extra 40 points? Did that go
I put it in order.
In order, okay.
Yeah.
Now, why order and not growth?
Good question. So let's address that first. So both order and growth are excellent econ scales. Growth in general is the better economics scale. But if we take a look at the difference in income by taking 1 order or 0 order, the income changes by 3%, right?
Yep.
And if you do growth, it changes by 2%. So you would say, so order is better than growth, right?
Yep.
Plus, I should also mention, so that's one thing. However, the thing with growth is that it increases the population growth of your province, and population is what gives you income through the taxation. So over time, growth is a superior scale.
But this is for such a short game.
Well, that certainly diminishes that the value proposition for that aspect of it, right? The other aspect of order is that, first of all, you get a free +1 unrest reduction, so that's always nice. And you also get a reduction in the percentage of luck events. So if you see where events is at +10 with our current build. If we put 1 order, events are now at +8%. So
okay, that's quite substantial.
So
really, that's like 20% in difference.
Yeah, so it doesn't change. So taking misfortune or luck both increase the chances of events happening, in addition to then swinging those events more towards the positive scale or the good events or bad events scale. Order will suppress the chance of events happenings, and vice versa. Turmoil will increase the events happening. So that's why you typically see the combination turmoil luck. So if you have a nation that doesn't need order scales, and we'll go into that in just a moment, but if you can dump order, you go turmoil luck. That's actually a very good combination, because there are some great events in Fortune 3 or just Fortune events where you get like 1,000 or 2,000 gold, right? So economically, you can actually do quite well in turmoil 3, luck 3. And vice versa, if you're going to trash... Yes, go ahead.
Turmoil is the opposite of order.
Order, so, right.
Luck 3 that way, yep.
So if you go turmoil 3, luck 3, that can, if your nation can handle turmoil 3, that is a totally legit way of doing your scales. Alternatively, if you're taking, let's say you're doing a scales build for a nation, I don't know, like MA Man or something like that, but you need to get some points somewhere, misfortune is not a terrible place, because if you had order 2 or order 3, you're suppressing the number of events just a little bit. You're still getting more from 2 misfortune, but it does synergize a little bit with that.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That's great. Great. That's good to know, actually.
Now, the main reason why we are going order, though, is because order also increases recruitment points, which are much more significant now in Dominion side. In fact, they didn't exist in Dominions 4, I believe.
No. That's quite a limiting factor, isn't it? Actually,
it's a limiting factor for many different kinds of sacred. So let's go back to if you open up Helheim, for example.
Actually, I might just save what we've done, because this is going
to... sure, yeah. Just for testing purposes, yeah. So I'm opening up now the design screen for Helheim, and if we look at their cavalry, their sacreds, we see that 1 hell herding costs 65 gold, 12 resources, and 48 recruitment points.
Sorry, which one are we looking at? The hell herding?
The hell herding, right? So, first of all, the ratio of gold to resources is very high. So this is, 12 resources isn't like nothing, but comparatively to the gold, it's a tiny amount. Yeah. So it makes sense to have much lower productivity scales than gold economic scales, for one thing.
Yes.
But the recruitment point cost is actually going to be the limiting factor for this unit. Because gold is not a limiting factor. Sure, in the first few turns it is, but you could have a huge empire and you could just spend all your gold on your sacreds. The limiting factor here is partially resources, but as you clear your cap circle, you are going to get enough resources. That's a thing you have to test, though, and it depends a lot on your map. But if we have a pretty balanced map with, let's say, 5 neighboring provinces, This is why testing expansion is really important, because what you have to do is, based on the map that you're playing, you have to clear your cap circle and then look at how many resources you have with the scales, with the productivity scales that you took. And
with the income coming in from those.
Well, not the gold income, just the resources.
Yep.
And then you have to compare that to the Dominion strength that you took. So, for example, if I have a sacred unit that costs 25 resources to recruit, because it's like a cavalry unit or something like that, that's a pretty intensive recruitment cost, right? In terms of resources. Now, let's say I do a test game, I clear my cap circle, and I realize that with productivity 1, suppose, I will get 125 resources per turn in my cap, which means I'll be able to recruit 5 of those units.
Yep.
So it's useless for me to get a Dominion strength of 9 because no matter what, I'll never be able to feed more resources into my capital. Right. I'll never be able, plus let's say the one mage who happens to be sacred, right? I'll never be able to use all those holy points. Now, I mean, there are other benefits having a high Dominion strength, but you get what I'm saying? It's not, you have to calibrate all those scales together. Same thing, by the way, with the recruitment points. The recruitment points might also be just as limiting as the resource points. So there you have to set your order scale accordingly. So you have to do testing on the map that you're going to play or on a similar type of map to figure out.
I've never thought of that before. And so
yeah.
I love area of expertise that I just have never even thought of.
So that testing is really important for example, sacred heavy cav type of nations, like in MA Tianqi, for example, right? Or late age Tianqi, because I'm looking at Tianqi now in the early age, but their early age units are different. But the late age cavalry, like sacred heavy cav, typically costs a lot to recruit. So you got to figure out, you're typically going to take scales in a rainbow with that kind of build. And you got to count exactly, okay, once I clear my cap circle, how many of these guys can I afford? So what's the ideal number, right? And typically it might be like Dominion strength 7, maybe order 2, productivity 3, whatever, right? You got to play with it, and you got to, I can get away with 1 less of this scale because it's going to be useless to me anyways. So... Yep. That's an important decision.
With the Tianqi sacreds, because we haven't actually spoken at all about
That's those. Right. In EA Tianqi, we don't have heavy cav. We have the Warriors of the 5 Elements, which I've got up here on my screen right now.
Yeah, I've just opened that as well.
And and the reason why I mean, there are many heat neutral scales, but why I took them is because if you look at them, they're actually quite similar to some of the other sacreds we've been looking at. They're dual wielders.
Comparing them to the Chud skin shifters with the being low at 6, but then we've got the ambidextrous on these as well, haven't you?
So they're kind of, they have a lot of similarities. So first of all, yes, in terms of the recruitment profile, they're similar to all of these other nations' profiles in that they are high gold, low resource, high recruitment points. The only, even Vanheim's Van here is actually, let me bring those up just quickly because I don't remember. If I go to Vanheim.
Actually, sorry, I've just got a few people are commenting about the overpriced mages and also that they're old. So
for who?
Tianqi.
For Tianqi, yes. Well, we can talk about Tianqi in a minute, but let me just finish this train of thought. You're right. They're not completely wrong. So if I look at the Van here cost. Amongst all the nations that we're thinking about playing on our team, these are the ones that have the highest resource cost at 16 per. So these are
the Helheim cavalry higher?
Let me look at that. I don't think so.
No, you're right. They're not. No, that's okay.
Because they only have... Yeah, amazingly, no. You'd think they've got scale mail and iron caps and a shield. Apparently they got great deals from the dwarves up there and only 12 resources per, so good on them. So the Vanheim Sacreds cost 16 resources per. So honestly, I don't know if at Sloth 3 the Vanheim player is going to be able to recruit, we have Dominion strength of 8 on our build. So assuming 1 goes to the mage commander who happens to be sacred, can you recruit 7 Van Heers per turn on the scales that we have? Maybe he won't have enough resources. I don't know. It's possible.
I'm pretty sure that's Wade Star, so that just doesn't matter. I'm just being nasty.
But it might not, but this ratio is pretty good, I think, for all of us. And like I said, first of all, Ulm, if you're still not sure, maybe between Ulm and Roos, but although Ulm's units, they have 28 gold, 17 resources, so the ratio there is much closer. But Ulm has mages that you can recruit that add resources to the province. So the resource cost can be compensated for by that. So that's not an issue for Ulm.
Okay. Yep.
If you look at the Warrior Smith adds 5 resources to the province.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Now,
so if you have
to be honest, it's still not Ulm. If I was just playing Ulm alone, so I got a prompt here. If I was just playing Ulm alone, I would not go Sloth, right? I would probably go Scales for sure. But we got to make sacrifices in a Disciples game. Anyways, going back to Tianqi, so their sacreds, the warriors of the 5 elements, fit. So in terms of scales, they fit this common build that we're going to have, which is we're going to have a little bit of order to have higher recruitment points and decent gold, and we're going to trash our resources. So they fit that. And then they also are pretty killy because they're dual wielders, which is nice. And then
combine that with the quickness.
Well, right. So finally, an hour and 20 minutes into the stream, let's talk about how quickness is actually going to work for these sacreds, because quickness and twist fate. So let's just let me bring those up just so we are clear on what they do. So I got to recreate my pretender here. Okay, so quickness does a few things. First of all, you can see at the bottom here it says Blessed units are quickened. Quickened units move and attack twice as fast and get +2 to their attack and defense skill. So it's a very, very powerful bless. It means that each attack that you have happens twice per turn. So if you're playing as Roos with your skin shifters with their great axes, now they swing twice per turn with that great axe. Yep. So all of a sudden, your dudes that had 3 per square are now doing 6 great axe attacks per turn, which is an incredible amount of damage. Not only that, but quickness also adds +2 to the attack skill and +2 to the defense skill, which is just even better, right? Now the defense on your two-handed guys is less relevant, but that does come in and help our elven buddies who are going to have their light thug rating cavalry, and also Helheim, who's just relying on just his sacred cavalry. We wanted to maybe do a rainbow bless with some plus defense. Well, there we go. We got his defense, right? He gets an extra 2 defense on all of those glamour units. And although it's not a super killy bless, I mean, quickness is very killy. I shouldn't say that. Quickness is extremely killy. But that was another issue, which is that for the elven players, if we took a bless that buffed their defense a lot, that would be great, but it might be somewhat lacking in the killiness department. How are they going to kill meme giants, right? Yep. So quickness is kind of an answer to that.
Right, yep.
Now, quickness is great and all that, but we have a problem, which is that we're humans, and especially Tianqi, but the quickness is both offensive and defensive, but the other part of this bless that we're taking is Twist Fate. And what Twist Fate does, as you can see, the first successful attack against bless units will be negated. So this is not quite as good. Excuse me. This is not quite as good as luck, but luck costs a lot more. Luck costs. Sorry, just a moment. bring it up here. So luck costs 9 astral instead of 6. And also you have to have luck 2. And we're counting on the luck skills to trash them to get misfortune. So there's no way we could afford quickness luck. Or we'd have to like go death scales and sloth and like it'd be crazy.
Yeah, I've just opened that up now just to sort of show you.
Now, luck is not good. It's not necessarily good with elves, but I want to point out that luck is very strong. Luck is very strong with really weak and vulnerable sacreds that can die easily.
Right. Yeah.
A great example might be, any humans, right? Maybe like a Marignon, they have those flagellants. I guess Micklin, right? Anything which is like no armor is going to die in one hit. Well, with luck, they're not going to die in one hit because you're going to kill them, and then 75% of the time, you're just not going to kill them.
Yep.
So luck is very powerful. It's also great in general if you're playing against somebody who's going to one-shot kill you, like giants, right? Now,
because you get the good chance to actually survive that attack.
Yeah. Now that being said, we can't afford luck, so we're doing Twist Fate. Twist Fate just negates the first attack, which is different. So first of all, even if the first successful attack was only going to do 2 damage, it's still going to trigger. So maybe you could have wished you could have afforded to take the 2 damage, but. We're playing against another Disciples team. If they don't go meme giants, if they go meme giants, this is perfect because any attack is just going to one-shot kill. Like any of us humans, I guess maybe not your skin shifters, but even then,
I sort of almost get like a.
Well, not only that, but that Twist Fate applies twice.
Yeah.
So,
oh, really?
So it'll apply once. Yeah, so it'll apply once for the conversion to the bear, and then it'll also apply at the end if the bear dies.
Oh, wow. Okay,
yeah, that's exactly.
I'm liking that.
Yeah, but like even the Vanheim, the Vanniers, right, who have like, I don't know, they have like 16 hit points. They'll be berserkers. They'll have a lot of protection. They're like, oh yeah, we're tough. Yeah, well, you go against like a Hinnom giant, they'll one-shot kill that anyways, right? Like Glamour Cavalry, oh, you can't hit me, but then once they get hit, they just die in one shot. So Twist Fate is great against giants, but even if they might go some kind of Murder Blessy blood build with like Micklin and like Ocelots and Seers and stuff like that, I could see that kind of build. Again, with very killy units. So that is going to be an issue. So in other words, we're going to be able to take advantage of Twist Fate anyways. Twist Fate also synergizes very well with Glamour. So for the Elven folks, Glamour basically negates, like it's like a layer of defense. Unless you have magic weapons and unless you do like 25 damage, Glamour will just negate all the attacks. So the first successful attack will get blocked by Twist Fate, and then you still have Glamour up, right? So it's just like an extra layer of, God damn it, why can't I kill these elves? So Twist Fate works quite well with elves in general.
Oh, okay. Yep.
It synergizes well,
so that's a really good combination.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, you cut up a little bit.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, with your thought process, with sort of like the selection of your pretender and all that sort of that side of things, you've really had sort of melded all of those different things all together.
Yeah, and also
it just blows my mind.
And I should say finally that for Tianqi, it's also an excellent pick because the Tianqi sacreds are very killy, but they are like the epitome of, like, they're 12 hit point humans with a leather cuirass, no hat. They have like no protection. Like they die to archers. Really, like expanding with them. You gotta normally like, oh yeah, province with archers, no problem. Well, with these guys, sorry, I got a phone call here.
That's all right. Okay, so
let me just take this call and I'll let you talk. I'll just mute myself.
Yep, I'll just keep on talking. Okay, so I might just start talking about things. Wait, won't go through anything in sort of great depth, but it was great to sort of see all that side of things. So let's just go and create a disciple. So I'm going to be playing Russ down through here. We've already spoken about the focus being on these Chud skin shifters and also the Chud warriors with their abilities as well, just with their strong hit points. Does allow me to sort of have like a fairly strong human-sized unit that can then sort of come through, which doesn't cost a hell of a lot. Like when we compare that with the skin shifter, the recruitment cost for the skin shifter is extremely high, and the gold cost is extremely high. Resources cost isn't. I guess with those things that we're sort of seeing there, the defense skill is going to be a bit of a problem for this particular unit simply because he's only wearing the furs. So that twist fate will kick in. Then he'll eventually start taking the damage with his hit points. And once he then dies, he then becomes a werebear with even more hit points. And and so it then sort of kicks back in again. So at least I've got a few shots before I end up with those guys dying, which would actually be fairly cool. So I hadn't really thought much at all about what I take for my actual pretender or my disciple, because I only get access to these guys. So I guess the choices that I was sort of thinking about was whether I go with somebody that can then create items, which isn't.
Sorry, I'm back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just going through. Actually, I'll start again with mine. I was just going to start to because I've actually got to go in a little bit over half an hour. So I thought if you don't mind just spending a bit of time going through the
good idea.
The disciple.
So creating a disciple, early ages. We're looking at Rus here.
Yeah. So create disciple, early ages. So Rus. And
I thought a little bit about this too before the stream.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because the physical, my play style, I always get scared whenever I play with a super combatant, and so
you're afraid to lose it, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to lose, but it's something.
I get you.
But I don't. It doesn't really matter much, does it, in this game?
Well, you won't lose the bless.
Yeah.
So yeah, I took a look at this, and what. So one of the things about Rus is, so Rus as a nation has access to a fair number of summons, not all of which will be useful. You do have Conjuration 3, you have Summon Bears, which are Sacred Bears.
Yes. Yeah.
So that is an excellent place to dump your nature gems, for sure. You have Firebirds, but Firebirds are sort of a late game econ play, so I would not bother with getting those.
Yep.
For the most part, you have the paths needed on your recruitable mages to do your summons. There are a few exceptions, and those exceptions involve there's a couple of death. There's a death heir that you have.
That's Send Lady Midday, is it the one?
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking through the list here. I'm doing this in-game. It's easier to do this in the mod inspector, but just because I'm too lazy to open a window for the stream for that.
I'm the same. I'm just got it in-game.
So yeah, the Send the Lady Midday. Now, the Lady Midday it's useful. We can do without it this game, but it's something to consider. However, the one thing that I saw that I thought might be quite worth it is the Alkonost, which is at Conjuration 4. And the reason is that this is a Holy 3.
Oh, okay. Yep,
and in a Disciples game, you do not get a profit.
No.
And so it is hard to claim sites, to claim thrones. Because most nations just don't have... how are you going to do it, right?
Yeah. Actually, sorry, just cut in there. I've just got a question.
Yeah.
Disciples game, probably 0, I would say, in this case.
Oh, sorry, you cut off at the beginning of the question. What was the question again?
Okay, the question is, what is the optimal level of role-playing when playing a Disciples game? What we'll be doing is we'll be playing, basically we'll all be in the one room, in the one chat room, playing the game turn after turn after turn. So role-playing will be absolutely minimal. So I just wanted to
this is going to be like a blitz game, so it's not like a This is more intended to be like a playing the game type of game rather than a sort of longer role-playing series. Although that would be, to be honest, I think that would be both hilarious and fun to do a very thematic kind of Disciples game, like the elves versus the undead versus what, right? Like,
yeah.
But for another day, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, but it's a good question. So, so one thing I noticed about Rus is they have this Alkanos, which is a Holy 3. And I thought that might be valuable just because of the lack of a prophet. Now, the issue is it's an Astral 2, and natively, you don't have Astral 2. You have an Astral 1 Cat Mage with a 10% chance to get Astral, to get a second Astral Path. So it's going to be tricky to get one of those.
Yeah, unless I get that through my my disciple.
Yeah, or unless one of us crafts you an Astral Booster. Now, as Tianchi, I have the paths to do that. So we don't. So in other words, you definitely can have access to that, but I'll have to go up construction and make it happen. Now. Yep. But if you wanted to do it yourself, like I was thinking, is there a build that can give you Astral and not suck, right? And so I was looking, and, you're limited in the past. Now, of course, you can go Rainbow, for sure. But the one thing I came up with, because the problem, look, if you take an Earth Serpent, here's the issue. You can't just take, like, 2 Astral, because then you'll get Mind Hunted. Not Mind Hunt, Magic Dueled. Magic Duel is a battle spell that only takes an S1 mage. It costs 1 pearl, and then it's like it targets another mage on the field who is also an astral mage.
Right. Okay.
Each mage rolls a D6, not an expanding Dominion C6, just a regular D6. The loser dies. I forget exactly what happens in a tie. So, but it's plus your native path. So if I'm an S1 mage and I try to magic duel an S7 mage, I will always lose.
Right. Yeah.
But if you take 2 astral on an earth snake, then as your opponent, if I happen to have astral mages on my nation, I just bring like 6 guys with 6 pearls and I kill your beastly snake, right? Almost guaranteed. Yeah. Yep. So typically it's accepted that you want to have at least Astral 4.
Right.
And then the problem is that an Earth Snake with Astral 4 means he's only Earth 1. No, he can't even be Earth 1. You can't even have a snake with Astral 4.
No, I can get to 3.
Yeah. So, but I was looking at the other options, and you could do... You could do a Raven of the Underworld. Now, this is a fun chassis. And here I was thinking something... I mean, just for example, we'd have to see more deal, but a Raven of the Underworld, Earth 2, Astral 4, Death 3. Just to play with something... maybe not even Earth... I don't know. Well... I could figure out the exact details. Maybe Death 4. Oh, no, Air. Yeah, Air. You can empower. I'd have to see what your gem income is. Maybe you empower an Air or empower in Death. Whatever. The point is,
I've got reasonable Air, and that was actually...
you have reasonable Air income, right?
I've got reasonable. I think I start with 2, I think.
Okay. And you have good side searching. Yeah, maybe you start with Earth and maybe empower an Air later. Okay, so here's my thinking, all right? So you take it Astral 4 just because you want to be safe from Magic Duel.
Yep.
Also, obviously, it's Astral, and therefore you can now summon that unit if you want it.
Yep.
Let's take Earth 2. Now you have Earth 2 Astral 4. You have the Earth Astral cross paths, which is really nice for getting all those Astral boosters, right? Because the Crystal Coin, the Crystal Shield, the Hat. Earth Astral is a great path for boosting. And all the Communion stuff, the Crystal Matrices and stuff like that. because your recruitable mages, you have cap mages with Astral, but it's only Astral 1.
Yeah.
And this will be useful. It'll be a useful path to have access to.
The trouble is that most of the people watching this from my side, they actually communions, as in not at all.
Yeah, I know that you've had bad experiences with communions in the past. We have not picked a communion nation for you. Don't worry. I'm just saying I can guide. We can do baby steps, right? I can guide you through some of the first things. The possibility is out there. Okay, now. If you take a look at the actual chassis itself, the Raven of the Underworld, you think, okay, well, sure, it's a bird, it flies, it's got like talons and a beak, it's got fear, okay, dark power, I guess it's good in darkness, fortune teller, sure, but this last one, Corpse Eater 15, if this unit is present in a province after a battle has happened and there are a lot of corpses generated, it will eat those corpses and become bigger. Like its hit point pool will increase. If you guys have watched Lucid's recent, not so recent now, series, he did a Disciples game where he was playing as Yomi with a teammate who was playing Lanka, and they had a Raven of the Underworld as I think the disciple. And it was up to 800 hit points. Like, it gets ridiculous.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it just eats up all the corpses. It just gets massive. And then what you have is you have a big bird. He's got built-in death. So I have mine right now. I've got him Earth 2, Astral 4, Death 3. So he would do Soul Vortex, right? If they don't have magic weapons and you do body ethereal, then that's extra hilarious, right? Because then they literally can't touch him. With Earth, you do like Iron Skin and Temper Flesh, right? So you have a giant bird with 500 hit points. You put a ring. You put a ring of regeneration on him. So he's regenerating a huge amount each turn because it's a percentage of the total hit points.
So he can take 2 rings and a crown.
Or wait, I mean, you could find, maybe he needs an anti-magic amulet, whatever. But he's got, a ton of reinvig and also an extra regen from the soul vortex. He's going to have high protection from the earth buff, from Iron Skin. Temper Flesh also reduces incoming damage by half. To me, that just seemed like a funny meme play that could be a lot of fun to pull off. Now, the other nice thing is that later, if you empower once in air... Oh, sorry, parentheses. Astral is also good because you can magic phase him. You could teleport, right? So that's key. Because if somebody has an exposed army, if they aren't specifically kitted out to kill like a giant monster bird... you could just delete armies by magic phasing this guy on top of them.
Which area of magic is that?
Well, this would be teleport in this case because he's astral. The other way is to do Cloud Trapeze, which is an air spell. So teleport, it's like, I forget, teleport is... It's like it's enchantment or alteration, or thaumaturgy. I don't know, it's like 3 or 4. It's not deep down, it's easy to get in terms of research. You need to be Astral 3 to cast it.
Yep. I see that there. Maybe it is alteration.
I forget. Sorry, which path it's down. Might be thaumaturgy. The other thing so with those paths, you got it. With those paths as they are, thaumaturgy. So Astral 4 is enough to boost all the way to the end in terms of Astral. And somebody pointed way back in my chat that one of the advantages of having a Titan over a kind of monster or statue are the item slots, and that's true. And this Raven only has a head and 2 items, and 2 miss. Fortunately, that's exactly what you need, because the head item can take the Astral Boosting Hat, which gets you to 5. You can forge the coin, which gets you to 6. and then you can forge a ring, which gets you to 7. So,
okay. Does the isn't
like-
the cap? The cap is just a
head.
a helmet, though. Isn't it?
yeah, exactly.
It's
So he can.
It's not a crown.
Oh, can he only wear crowns?
Crowns and laurels. Yep.
Ooh, okay. So maybe it's not as amazing as I thought. Well, yeah. So I would have to forge Ring of Sorcery. Okay, it's not as awesome because I was thinking, oh, he could like take care of all your astral forging. That might be a limitation, but okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But
No way to get 5, is there?
well, yeah, you get the crystal coin. The crystal coin would get you to 5, but then the Ring of Sorcery is at 6. And you'd be stuck there. But I could forge a Ring of Sorcery as Tianqi, for example.
What about Astral 6, Death 4? Would that be worth it, or is it better? Is it important to get the Earth?
So that's a good question. I think that the nice thing about having high astral in Death is that then you could do Soul Drain. Soul Drain is deep down in. Hang on, let me bring this back here. Soul Drain is down in Thaumaturgy. Thaumaturgy 8. You have to be Astral 5, Death 5. Yeah, that's the thing. It's very powerful. You can like delete even massive armies with it, and this would be a great chassis for it. But the truth is, this guy, if you wanted to do Soul Drain, you could sacrifice a few Astral mages, even Cat mages, and just do a Communion, or put. Yeah, Thaumaturgy. Well, you could. You can count on getting, 1 or 2 paths, maybe down to 8. But that'd be more of a late game play. I think that having Earth in the early mid game to be able to buff your protection and to put Temper Flesh and Iron Skin up is going to be a much greater asset. And also because it's going to help give you that cross path. And the other thing I wanted to mention is later I would definitely empower into air because that is going to allow you to do Wailing Winds, which is an incredible.
Go air 2, Astral 4, Death 3.
No, I would do Earth 2, Astral 4, Death 3, and then during the game, at some point, you're going to spend 50 air gems to empower your bird into air.
Oh, okay. I never do that. So
yeah, it is rare, but here, I mean, maybe not. You don't have to do exactly this. This is just something that I came up with. Literally,
a lot of air gems.
Well, that's the thing.
Air gems natively per turn.
You're going to be site searching air. You're going to have air income, right? So this is something you can think about. Now, the reason this is nice, first of all, Wailing Winds is a absolutely devastating spell. It is so strong. And in case people aren't familiar with it, it's a battlefield-wide spell which attacks morale, basically. And it causes armies to rout.
Spell is this one?
This is Wailing Winds. It is in...
It'll be air.
It is in Evocation, and it is at Evocation 7. Evocation 7. Evocation 6. I lied. Death 4, Air 1.
I'm seeing it there. Actually, I'm not hearing anything from your micro.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I forgot to push the talk. It is in Evocation at Evocation 6. Wailing Winds.
That's not an air spell.
No, it's a death spell.
Oh, okay.
Death 4,
right, yeah.
Air 1. Okay, so it's a battle enchantment, and it just causes armies to rout. It's incredibly powerful.
Okay. Yep.
And not only do we have another player who also has Death Air cross paths on our team, so the opponents are going to be really mad at us, but it's a very, very powerful spell, and you'll be able to cast it with your disciple if you empower him with. That would be the reason to empower him with air, but it would be worth it. Just this alone would be worth empowering him in air. And Evocation is actually a path that you are likely to research, because looking at Rus, I'm thinking you would do Conjuration and Evocation. I mean, obviously you got to get like some of the low paths that, to get some of the basic army buffing spells everywhere. But since your mages are mostly air and fire, you're going to want to be doing elementals and evocations. And so you're going to probably be going down evocation. You're going to do storm. Like, I think looking at your mage layout, it seems to me that evocation to get to storm, then all your low air mages can do summon storm power, which gets them up to air 2 or 3 or 4 depending on the mage, and then they can just do thunder strikes, right?
So just need one Pekunu at air 4.
Well, he doesn't need to be air 4 to cast storm. He can do it at air 3 with a few extra gems.
Oh, okay. Yep. Always communions.
Or communion, or not even a communion, but power of the spheres. But because he's only Astral 1, Power of the Spheres is going to cost a whole 100 fatigue, so then he'll be very tired. And if it's not in the right temperature scales, he'll actually go over 100 fatigue, and then he won't cast his Storm on turn 2 like you expect him to, so your whole script will get messed up. So
Communion would be a safer way?
Communion, or you just do it with extra gems on the first turn. That would be the way to do it. Yeah. You give him... So Storm is air 4 and costs 1 air gem. If you have an air 3 mage, you can just give him 2 gems and he will cast Storm. So you just do that on the first turn.
That's another thing I never ever do.
Yeah, and then...
I'll have to...
Yeah, and then all your other guys on turn 1 also do summon Storm Power. And then all your air 1s become air 2s. They can do lightning bolts. All your air 2s become air 3s. They can do thunder strikes. So that's a pretty powerful... I mean, that's kind of the thing that I'd be doing with Rus mages. Air elementals are always a thing. Fire elementals are a thing. Yeah. So because like I said, it's a short game, so we want to find synergies in our research paths. That seems like a good synergy there with that chassis that you could do Wailing Winds. So that's one option. I kind of like it, but it's, honestly, it might totally not work, right? Maybe he dies a lot, he never gets big, and then he's just whatever. He'll be a cool big bird, right?
It's like the beauty of actually having someone like yourself actually as the rest of us can screw things up a little bit, and it's not going to really matter that much.
Oh, plus you can call him Big Bird.
Actually, there's a comment here.
You can name him, yeah.
Staff of Storms might be something viable to aim for as well.
Oh, sure, yeah. That way, well, yes. The Staff of...
Construction 8, though, isn't it?
No, Construction 6.
6, is it? Okay.
But construction might be a thing you go for in the sense that you have easy fire access. So construction 6 opens up like lightless lanterns, which is a very powerful research item, and you do have some fire income. So that could be something you consider doing. Yeah, I mean, almost all the time people will go to construction 4. You need construction because you need to be building some items for your mages anyways.
Yes, yeah.
Now,
so
I forget...
It's not worth... I'm just looking at the time. I don't have that much time left, but I was just thinking with the... we've got the Raven of the Underworld as one option. Are there any of the Rainbow Mages that would be worth having a look at? Yeah,
so if you weren't going to do that, then it would be a Rainbow, right? And then I was thinking, what would be the most useful? One thing you can do, so there are 2 options. You can do, actually, this is the other good option, which is more standard, is you take the, I keep canceling out of it. Sorry, create a Disciple, Rus. This one is very popular in Disciples games, and it is the Svaltarf Mastersmith.
Yeah, actually, I was looking at that one myself
because
I could then just really push a lot of development. Hang on, sorry, I went to the wrong one. Clicked the wrong guy.
You might be thinking the Eldest Dwarf, but I'm thinking the Svaltarf Mastersmith.
Yeah, you might be right. Actually, I think
so. This fellow, the reason he is so. First of all these rainbows, they all cost like 90, 100 points, right? This guy costs 260 points. You're like, what the hell? No, he turns into the Linorm, which is that first one, that giant snake Loch Ness monster looking like thing.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So he shape changes into that. Okay. So you're getting both. You're getting a mage and a super combatant in one. The problem is if you take the Linorm, then to boost his paths, it costs like 80. Right? If you look at his chassis, it says, 80% for new paths. Right?
Yep.
And he's just stuck in that. But if you take the Svaltarf Mastersmith, then you see, like you can see, even when you select him, it shows up as the Linorm. Do you see that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
So that you actually get that, and you can fight with that, but you get extra paths for only 20.
Yep. Yep.
So in that case, what you would do is you would take a bunch of little paths. Now, one thing I have to double check, and you should double check this in testing because I haven't played with it in a while, is I forget. I think he loses one path when he shapeshifts. Let me see if I can pull this up in the mod inspector quickly. Hang on. Units. S, there we go. Master Smith, okay. Path boost -2 all. Yes. So when he changes shape, he will lose 2 paths in each of his paths.
Wow. Okay.
But that means that if you were to take... but if you take 3, then you'll get 1 even in his monster form.
Yep.
So in particular, for like a kind of expander super combatant type of chassis, if you took water, then you could do quickness, liquid body. He has built-in earth. You get earth 1. He actually has already a lot of natural protection. So iron skin isn't super relevant, but temper flesh is nice. Some earth power. You could play around with something that you would like. Going to water would give you, like I said, that would give you quickness. We have quickness. Okay, less interesting. Fire for Phoenix Pyre would be hilarious. They kill him, but then he just pops right back.
How much fire would I need for that?
So if I'm seeing this correctly, if it says path boost -2 all, that means that he will lose 2 path boosts. So you would need to have at least 3 in fire, so that when he, in his dwarf form, he'll have fire 3, but then when he turns into his other form, he'd have fire 1, which Phoenix Pyre is 2 fire, but you could give him a fire gem and he could cast it. Now, so I don't know I'm trying to think. So he comes with native earth and death. I think you'd want to have death up there. Let me see if people are commenting here.
So get it to say 4 or something like that.
Somebody asks. All right, let's see. I've gotten some people on my channel. Coax, are you suggesting those paths for the dwarf or for the bird? Let's see. He said nature 2. No, that doesn't make sense. You wouldn't want nature 2. Yes, the other thing, what people are pointing out in my chat, which is absolutely true, is you can just cast the spells while he's in dwarf form and then shape change, but it's going to take one of your script slots, right?
Yep.
So then you can be really greedy, right? Then you would do...
So I could go low level.
No, it's great. So he's saying N2 for regen. Yeah, I like this. Oh man, thanks guys. This is great. Yeah. So yeah, you do. Let's see. You only have four script slots to buff. So you would do regen. Earth. Yeah, you could do Iron Skin, but I think you need Temper Flesh more than Iron Skin because you've already got 20 protection. I mean, yeah, you could move. You could. That's right. Oh, wait, but if we had, because N3 we could just do. Yeah, that's something. Gaia's power. Cokes, do you think? I don't think we need Earth. Like, I don't think you're gonna cast Iron Skin in this.
So what numbers you've got in your magic we're looking at, just so I can.
Well, I'm just playing around with the numbers here. So right now, like, I'm not sure if we can afford even the Fire 2, although it's an extra, screw you. Can we even afford, yeah, Air? Yeah, because we need to Magic Phase him on top of stuff. So Air 2. That way he can also Mist Form. And you get and then he can also do Wailing Winds. Yes. All right, hang on. We got something here, guys. Let's see. All right. Right, I'm working this out also with my chat here. But let's see. The script would be Regen, Soul Vortex, Temper Flesh, something, and then change shape. Now, I want to squeeze more out of this somehow. So right now I have him with Air 2, Earth 2, Death 4, and Nature 2.
So no fire?
No. But we could do fire if we went. So the problem is that then we don't have. It's very tight. But I got one that had 0 design points. What do you guys think about this in chat? Fire 2, Air 2, Earth 2, Death 3, Nature 2. So the script. Okay. Let me see. What would this script be? This script would be Regen, Soul Vortex, Temper Flesh, Phoenix Pyre, and change shape. Right? And when you need him to do Wailing Winds, he could do that instead. The Air then is just there for the Cloud Trapeze. Because we can't afford to do Mist Form. Later on, we do Gaia Power. Yeah, Cokes. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. And because there's a bit of a delay here. Later on, you give him a Nature Gem, and instead of Personal Regen, he does Gaia's Power, which adds also like Strength and whatever. Yeah, this is a pretty sick build. I like it.
Okay, so comment here is saying that also.
Sorry, what was that?
You get Skeletal Body as one of the other spells that you could put in there as well for 50% pierce resistance.
True. The problem is that we only have 4 spells that we can cast before we have to do Shape Change. And Pierce resistance is not needed because we're going to do Temper Flesh in Earth, which does Pierce / and Blunt resistance.
Right. Okay. Yep.
And yeah, sorry, Gaia's Blessing. I kept saying the wrong one. Okay, so I love this even more than the bird. Although the bird is funny in his own way. But okay, this guy, so Fire 2, Air 2, Earth 2, Death 3, Nature 2. And you should have 0 design points left, which obviously makes it extra good, right? And so that
gives me a lot of also site searching as well.
Absolutely, yeah, it does. So he's a great site searcher. And then in battle, this thing is going to be monstrous, right? Oh, another call.
Actually, I like this. I like this better than the bird. Yep, sure. Okay, so yeah, personally, I prefer this one. Just see if there's any other questions that anybody's actually asked on my side of things. So we've got see if there's anything. Yeah, Raven Cart with the Starshine Skull Cap. Yep, we thought that might be the case. So Ravage is saying it sounds like a rainbow-coloured world. What's not to like? Yeah, it's pretty cool. As a disciple unit, that's not too bad. The only one that stays with him once he then changes back to this physical form would just be 1 death, but that's fine. That's not a problem. And Lord Sloth is then just talking more about the skeletal body. But if temper flesh, if we just go back to spells, and I'm guessing that would be alteration, and temper flesh would be earth. So I'll just press E. There it is there. So it's just a earth one. Okay, made highly resistant to. Yep, grant slash, blunt, and pierce resistance, and fire resistance of +5. So Ravage is saying, never got too far in most of my Dominion. Yeah, it's sort of because I think I'm really taking the most out of this one is just how different Sakwane thinks to what I think. And I've done this before. I played against a chess master once in chess because I'm okay against people who are, sort of like don't play all that often, which is sort of like me. But you play against a chess master and it's just incredible what they see. They see a completely different game than what the rest of us see. And Sakwane is a little bit like this as well, just with the way that he actually looks at the game. He looks at it from a different perspective. I've learned a hell of a lot just from the approach that he's taken. I sort of want to almost just jot down or re-look at this stream again and just go, okay, he started here and did this, and this with his thinking. Because it's almost the opposite of the way I would have gone about it, which is really, really fascinating. So I think my abilities to actually build better pretenders and disciples will be improved a little bit from this particular session, actually, which is great. There's no other questions there that I can sort of see, unless any have sort of fallen off the top of the chat. I've been sort of keeping an eye open for that one, but yeah, I think this one does. I do think I prefer this this one here, this Master Smith. Yeah, lost the same. Temper Flesh is all-round superior. Isn't ready turn 1 or 2. That's okay. I mean, it's that's going to be fine. I probably won't expand the very first turn. I will be doing some test streams. Maybe I will do some test streams, live streaming. I sort of didn't want to do too much live streaming until we actually have our game. By the way, the game will be coming. We'll be live streaming that on Saturday for most of the rest of the world, like 6 p.m. I think it is Greenwich Mean Time. So 6 p.m. GMT will be the time when we start to do the Disciples game. It's 4 versus 4, and as I say, Sakwane is sort of like the commander of our team, and so there'll be Wade Star, Waga, myself being the Disciples, with Sakwane being the actual the pretender for that game, and the 4 of us will be in chat. So we'll sort of be talking as we go. I don't know how that's going to go actually with all of us sort of in chat. We'll see how that sort of works. I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer many questions in that particular session, unfortunately. Okay, so Seducer Pretender says Osteus. Seducer Pretender. Is there one there that I'm not looking at? That Seducer. Not sure what you mean by that. Sorry. Yeah, it's funny. I think I had started doing one, and that was actually where I was looking at originally. But this has been much, much more effective, actually, where we ended up. So Ravik is saying, do you know the Pretender Nation? Yes. Sorry, I'll just quickly go over that. Let's go and view the created pretenders. This will be the actual nation. So he's going to be playing Tian Chi, and with this particular oracle. So we've got quickness and twist fate will be the builds that we actually have. We'll have 8 dominion, 1 order, 3 sloth, 3 cold, 0 growth or death, 2 misfortune, and 1 magic. The magic is required for the twist fate. So that's actually, just as a summary, that's what Sakwane. The others will be playing, and we don't know exactly what they're going to have just yet, but their groups will be, if we have a quick look at theirs. So we've got Vanheim back in through here. I think that Wade Star is playing Vanheim, and I think that Wagamama is playing Helheim. I think that's the order. It may be the other way around. So they'll have to also then choose from different things. Now, if I know Wade Star, he'll go with this one here, the Earth Serpent, and so, but I'm not sure what he'll actually choose in through this one as well. Ravage is saying, in terms of scales, Dominion effect, the scales are going to, what it basically means is we're going to end up if we just view that one again, don't know if it'll show us. It doesn't show us the rundown in this particular one. I'll just quickly go and rebuild it. So if we go and create a pretender god for a disciples game, early age, TNC, and then across to the Oracle. Just get that up to 10. This one up to 6. Grab one of those. And grab both of those. I was asking more in the sense of some dominion would be rather unpleasant for disciples. Just wondering if you had any taken any boss choices into account. Well, that's the beauty of this, is that what he's done is he's actually asked us what we like to play, and essentially has and he's actually now fitted in his build to actually make the best out of the disciples builds. So if you wanted to watch back, and we'll be uploading this to YouTube possibly tomorrow, I think. And so we'll actually sort of pop this one up there as well, because it does sort of show his thinking actually was the opposite of what mine would be. I would be starting with a pretender and then everyone had to fit in. But what he's done is he's figured out that the rest of us are all playing Cold Nation. So he can play TNC and actually still get the best of like a good build for him and a good build for all of the disciples as well. So yeah, it's going to be awesome. So it's 4 versus 4 essentially with the disciples build. The disciples game, if you haven't played one of those before, and I've never actually played one, is that you've got one pretender, which is going to be Saquonet's TNC Oracle, and then the rest of us literally just have like super combatant type units that we can then take into battle. So that's going to be quite interesting. He's on a phone call at the moment, and that is whether the I noticed that when I did one little test run of it, there was you couldn't actually tell your disciple to bless your units. And so I'm guessing that they don't bless the units, that you've actually got to go in. I'll be testing all that sort of stuff. So Menace of Twitch is saying, let the game, well, it's a few days away, but I will try to do a test run of it as well. Actually, I'll be setting that up now that I've sort of got those sort of builds ready. I will be able to then go and create like a random, just leave that one on okay. Just call this one test. I'll just delete that game, early ages. And this one will be TNC, human, Russ, human. So I can set up my team if I wanted to. I don't know what the other builds will be, so I'll just go back in through there. Disciple game. That'll be fine. Team 1. Oops. Team 1 with a disciple. Team 2. So that would sort of set up a where it's a 3 versus type game against the AI. And so then to sort of work this one out, bringing this one back in, just click on OK. Load Pretender God. Got Saquonet's God. Then Russ. Load the Pretender God. So I'd go probably the Rainbow Dwarf that we were just talking. That was what that comment was before, I think. I missed one of the comments. And I didn't think about what I'd actually called. So just click on OK. Just looking at the time, I'm going to have to get going in just a few minutes. So I may have to sort of end this just as we get started here. I'll just go through what Saquonet had sort of just mentioned there. Potential build, although I will have to do some research, I guess, for that. Pride Festival Dwarf, says Minutes of Twitch. It's taking a little while through here. So I can just go across, pick TNC, and just come back in, and then just go to options, become AI controlled. You sure, go ahead. So unfortunately, it's only but that at least gets it set up. So just exit that one out of there. We end our turn there. And then we just go to Russ, and then I can start to actually sort of play as Russ. And so back in through here is our commander. Now we're not. It's funny because we start in the other one. We need to change that one back across. Hang on. How do we change it from here? Must have to change it here, I guess. Change shape. There we go. All right. So there he is, Rainbow Dwarf, with his ring that doesn't actually do anything. Just choose up a ring slot, which is quite interesting, actually. Again, just to have something like that where you don't get to use a ring there. Okay, so with that one, we would then just go into the army setup, set the battle orders, cast a specific spell. Now, what do we have? We had regen, which we'd have to research those. Of course, this will be sort of random. It happens to be the level zeros. Yeah, so we don't actually have anything there that we'd mentioned. Okay, that sounds fine. So, hi Tom and Tactics, how you going? And joined us as well. Okay, so I don't actually have the specific spells there, but that'd be pretty sort of cool there. So anyway, that's I'll be probably, I don't know if I should be playing. Actually, this would be a great little start actually with the getting all of the resources from around the woods to give me like good resources. Not that actually, it's not so much the resources that I need for my side, but even so, that would be still useful. It's funny, it's got a mountain in there, but it doesn't actually have it listed. Anyway, so I'm going to have to close off my stream now. I've got to go and have a swim. I've got to meet some people for a swim in the ocean. So I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the stream from it. So I'll catch you all next time. Oh, hang on. Kokomo is saying, what does shape-shifting do for you? What it does is I've got the shape-shifting is that I can get this one to shape-shift back into the, like this guy will shape-shift. Oh, sorry, if you mean the actual units that I have, if I go to recruitable units, this one here, the skin shifter is a shape-shifter, and this one shape-shifts into a werebear is how this one actually sort of works. The other one, the dwarf that we've actually just got selected, if we have a look at him, he shape-shifts back into that other sort of, where is it? Change shape. Changes into this thing. I actually, second, I'm just saying my goodbyes.
Yeah, sorry. I was making you feel time. Oh my god! Sorry, it was a really important call, that one I had to take.
That's okay.
Hang on. But anyways, no. But this is a good. Yeah. Sorry if I was making you feel time for nothing. But I think we kind of touched on everything, right?
I think so. Yeah. No, that's great. Thanks so much for the session. Actually, that was great to be.
No, thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it really cemented a lot of my thoughts with being able to actually get around and just sort of see how you see the game. I was just from someone who doesn't play the game very much, to be able to sort of see the way that you see the game is through your eyes has been incredible. Actually, I really enjoy seeing how people approach games, and to be able to get inside your head like this. Fantastic.
Yeah, it was fun. Well, hopefully also during the game itself, we'll be able to kind of, there's so much more in this game in terms of, how you script things.
Yeah, yep.
And things like that, so yeah. All
right. I
do
have to get going, so I'm running a little bit late now, but I'll...
Yeah, me too.
That was fantastic.
All right, so I'll be in touch with you guys, with you, Das, and the rest of the folks that we're playing with. And I got to cut this stream short also, but I'll finish answering people's questions in chat.
Yep, no worries.
All right, take care. All right, take care, everybody. Sorry for the random quiet at the end of the stream there. I just have some important calls that I have to deal with, which I still need to do. So I'm going to end the stream now, and I'll wrap up some questions in chat. I just got to turn this off. So see you guys later.